Hello everybody and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Shades, your host, and as Forest get a point on the road at Brighton to keep their unbeaten run going. But of course, not without controversy, as Morgan Gibbs-White is sent off for a second yellow. But was it a yellow? Why on earth did Anthony Taylor have to get involved? And all of that, we will discuss all of that and much, much more to continue Forest's unbeaten run, joined by David Boldeman, who, David, you've just said to me, thank the Lord you're in Australia, because you have slept on this game. I haven't. We are recording this late on a Sunday night, but you've been to bed. You've had a chance to process this game. That is surely a podcast first.
Well, it's certainly a benefit. It wasn't easy getting to sleep straight after the match, because the brief for me is watch the match and then sleep for 7 hours, 6 hours, and then wake up and do the potty with you, Max. So here I am. Positive performance, I thought, overall, but wow, some moments. So certainly going to get into that. I'll try and give us some perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. We shall get on to Morgan Gibbs-White's yellow and Anthony Taylor, but that will be towards the second half of this. We've got to talk about a lot of the positives, first of all, and really, David, just start us off with, and I'll kind of take it from your answer, but really start us off with your overall thoughts on the game, because I thought, first off, we looked like a side that was playing with confidence. We looked like a side that had just beaten Liverpool last week, and it wasn't a fluke, and we were coming into the game really almost, the energy was high, the intensity, tenacity was there. And I thought, actually, particularly up until Brighton equalised and up until Forest scored, even with Chris Wood, it was another positive start away from home in the Premier League.
Oh, certainly a positive start. Look at the starting lineup. That was a very aggressive, positive team that I really liked the look of. It's the team I would have picked man for man. And then for the first 40 minutes, we really dominated Brighton. It just seemed like every pass stuck. Those through balls, they just seemed to be really on it. And what a great team performance. And it was just a lapse in concentration. There was that classic Cloughie thing: don't let them get an easy cross into the box. And that is exactly what happened on that first goal. And it was really well placed, and it was a free header actually for their guy that scored. So that was a moment, and then they switched off for another couple of minutes, and then another goal goes in. We'll go to each of the goals individually, and so then Forest managed to soak up some pressure for a while, and you're thinking, oh goodness, this could not be so bad. And then I didn't think the first round of changes were as good as we might have hoped, but what was it? Who came on fourth was Sosa. He was terrific, and then we jagged one, and then we could have even jagged a third one if that ball had been played a little bit earlier. And then you've just got the mayhem of that moment with the sending offs, and I really like the look of our assistant manager in that press conference. And then you're all just holding on. You're just thinking, oh, please, Forest, just hold on. And overall, 2-2 with a team that's similarly placed to us now, but has been well ahead of us previously. We took it to them in moments. They took it to us in moments. Smash and grab a point, really. You can't be too disappointed. Some galvanising moments for the team. I was happy the full-time whistle went, though, Max. Were you?
Yeah, I was very, very, very happy. Yeah, I was even happier because I was kind of on my way. I was on my way to work at 5 Live and do the phone-in show 6:06, and I thought I really don't want to be answering calls from Brighton fans that were happy they'd grabbed it in the last minute. So it was nice to go, and I was kind of watching the last minute as I walked out of my door, and yeah, it was I thought it was a relief when the full-time whistle went, but that wasn't in a way of that. I thought that the obviously the longer the game went on, Forest were down to 10, and the possibility of Brighton scoring was of course there.
The second corner in the last minute. Yeah. You just sit there going, it's like, oh, we can just soak up the one. We just soak up the one corner, and then you're running the numbers. You're like, what is it? Yeah, what's that numbers on corners? Like 1 in 10 corners are a goal or something like that. You're like, okay, all right, we're 1 in 10 here. All right, we'll be all right. And then it goes straight back at you, like, oh no.
Yeah. The nerves, honestly, yeah, the fingernails were there, and I think that's probably it's the most nervous I've been so far at the start of this season.
Yeah, most nervous of this season, that's for sure. Yeah. Just because we'd earned the point, and it would have been such an injustice for us to go there, and a bit of bummer, and would pull us back into the to either of the teams that are 15th and 14th and 13th, rather than we're a top 10 team at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good point, actually, David. You mentioned that, top 10 team. And we went to Brighton the last 2 times, and Forest have, we've got points there, but we've always struggled. And when we come in, it was 0-0, and then was it 0-0 and then 1-1 last season? I can't exactly remember. It could have been 0-0 both times, actually. But anyway, kind of point is that Forest away from home are scoring. Like, we're going to away games and feeling confident, and I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Like, when you think about Forest, you think often about poor Premier League away games. But that's changed, and it's Premier League away games that are now unbeaten, and that Forest are going. And
we couldn't win one. We couldn't draw one. We were horrendous away, and just horrendous.
And I think how the mentality has changed is big as well. And I think it shows that Forest are working to become that established Premier League side that we all want to be. Let's talk about kind of the build up to the penalty. I mean, it wasn't kind of really came out of nowhere that, Forest were dominating, but we were, we had chances, but so were Brighton, and the penalty kind of came out of not nothing, but it came out of nowhere, and you didn't expect it. And when Rob Jones points to the spot, I mean, Chris Wood steps up and does what he does, and Forest really have a golden opportunity then, don't they, David?
Well, for starters, were you nervous that Chris Wood was selected to kick the penalty? I certainly was. I was like,
no. Do you know what? No,
I was getting picked.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Okay, you maybe could have put Morgan on it, but or obviously Callum or Anthony, but
Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, possibly, but Ward-Prowse is a new player. Chris Wood scores goals for Forest. He's our striker. So I absolutely love the fact that the team has the confidence in the striker to score the penalties, which is normally what the centre forward does, right? So I think
you weren't worried at all. Even was one of Chris Wood's staunchest supporters, which is me. I'd still say, "Oh, please no."
Ish, but it's
well
at the same time. It's yeah. Absolutely.
Now the penalty, Max, it felt like it was a computer soccer penalty. That Callum Hudson-Odoi just manages to see him going across him and just I'll just move a little bit this way and get my leg in front of this way, and I'll just cop this penalty here. He really wasn't going anywhere. If that was against us, would our red and white goggles just be screaming no penalty, or would you have thought, yeah, it's fair enough?
I thought it was a penalty, and I think if
thought it was a penalty too. You've seen penalties like that given against us so many times now that it was a penalty. But it was a fast. They were under pressure. It was a fast break. It was a great run from Morgan. That turn of speed again from Morgan Gibbs-White as he was hooning down that right hand side. He was causing them trouble, and we were causing them trouble on those that direct passing. You saw it in that first 40 minutes. The passer was just sticking, and Callum and Alanga, they're really difficult to deal with. Yeah.
Absolutely, and when Chris Wood gets on the score sheet and Forest take the lead, and then we were frustrating Brighton for long periods of that first half, weren't we? It almost reminded me. I don't know about you, but it reminded me a little bit of. I thought this was going to be a Liverpool-esque performance. I thought it was almost the other way around. Forest had got the goal early, and then we were really going to frustrate them, not sit back for 90 minutes. But I thought that would be the way it goes, and then. You mentioned their equaliser, and then really Forest did seem to tail off towards us, the end of the second half and conceding both goals very, very quickly.
Well, two in 5 minutes. But I just what really struck me, and in the last couple of minutes, is it looked like the referee just stopped deciding to give us a couple of free kicks. And you notice on the one where Aina fouls, whoever Aina makes the foul before the Welbeck free kick, is that Callum Hudson-Odoi goes down and is claiming a free kick, and there's another player in the picture who's also caught out a little bit, and they're like, on the ground, making this motion, and that kind of was the key. Just a couple of guys off, and then Brighton are no slouches, and they caught us on that break, and Aina ends up making that foul. So the two nicely struck goals, but we're going to talk about Sells, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. But just before we talk about Sells, Do you think Forest conceding 2 in 5 minutes, David, is a bit of it's still a little bit of last season? Maybe I'm being too negative here on the team, but is that maybe a little bit of almost a hangover from last season in a way of that conceding goals so quickly and within a space of a few minutes, and it's that mentality thing again of the team switching off?
Well, it's some emotional fragility. So they let one in and then they don't galvanize and just take stock, and then they let a second one in. It's just classic Forester, isn't it? Goalers at the end of halves to just break your heart. Brighton are good though. Like we'd been on top of them for 40 minutes. To expect to just go to Brighton and dominate them for 90 plus minutes, it's not. You're not going to necessarily have it that way. You have to be able to soak up the pressure at times, like we did against Liverpool. We just didn't this time.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Let's talk about Matt Sells. Roy Keane at halftime on the Sky analysis saying that he should be fined a week's wages for letting that goal in. A little bit harsh. But he did stand there and he watched the ball go in. I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it, as a keeper sometimes? But I was actually just listening to Joe Hart's analysis before we recorded this.
I watched that. I had the Joe Hart analysis. He was bloody good on that analysis, I thought.
Yeah, he was. And he talks about kind of as a goalkeeper, you've got to track that kind of player just in almost because Gibbs-White was slightly just interfering in a way of in front of Sells' vision. And Joe Hart goes to talk about it. I recommend every Forest fan and every listener and viewer of the podcast goes and, social media, the internet, YouTube, and goes and watches Joe Hart's analysis on Sells. But do you think it is a bit harsh for people like Roy Keane, David, to say we should fine him a week's wages? I mean, it was disappointing, but
it's a bit of a joke. But Matt Sells will certainly be feeling like he let the team down himself. Joe Hart's also point on the weight, so where he had his weight, and also the height of players now. So human beings are typically a little bit taller, and now that you lie the player down at the bottom of the free kick as well, it makes the near post particularly hard to score on, because the gap on the near post is you have to play high, whereas the far post, it's got bottom and top. So he should be favouring that side. He didn't even move. So he should be expecting the ball to go to that side. So I'm not sure why he managed to just blow it from the dive, really.
It's a bit of an interesting one, this, David.
We still don't have the keeper right, do we? He's not like, you look at all the other players and you think, yeah, like I've got my notes in my Marino. Brilliant. Like, such a great addition. He's improved the team. He's come in. Sells is, it's either that or a striker, seems to be the positions that we're wanting to strengthen at the minute, I would think. But, it's a nice placed free kick.
Would you change the keeper, David? Do you think that
I don't know.
Forest?
I think we've just fallen in love with the big man because he's just an absolute phys. Like, he wouldn't even need to dive for that one. He might just be able to stick his hand out and just get it. Depends on what you're seeing in training and the athleticism.
And I also think that us football fans do a very short memory, right? Matt Sells has been a great servant for us and came in and we talked about it loads on this podcast, but steadied the ship in a way. Forest needed.
It wasn't far off saving the header.
Yeah, true. And
header. Like, it was a terrifically taken header.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. And it was a little bit disappointing, I thought, to go into half time, given that Forest had. And it's quite an entertaining game, this. I was thinking of a lot of City and Arsenal fans that must have been waiting for their game, that were potentially sat at home watching it. I thought they'd probably, as a neutral, really enjoyed the game. And obviously we'll get onto the drama in a moment. But it was disappointing then to go in at half time, wasn't it? And you must think for Nuno, how did you tell the players? Yeah.
So at half time, I switched back to rewatch the 2 goals. And I switched back to the 40th minute. And Forest are up 1-0, and just thinking, how the hell has my psyche just changed from what it was 5 minutes ago? Looking at it going, we were 1-0 up, and I was so positive, and it was, just pulling your hair out. Classic Forest at halftime. But what about the changes, Max? What do you think of those?
Yeah, good changes. I like them, and I like the fact that Nuno made them early, because we've talked about it so much on this podcast about in-game management, and don't even get me started on.
One of them was forced. Is Moreno injured?
Well, I mean, we don't know for definite.
Because Because I thought he was looking really good. And did you notice his pace is one of the notes I took down and dealing? And he had a lot thrown at him in that first half. I thought he looked pretty good.
Absolutely. I thought he just carried on the great game he had, against Liverpool. And I thought a lot of players did. Yes, there was some that were a little bit struggled today, shall we say. After the highs
we didn't
of
talk about before in the first half was that incident where the Brighton guy got in the way of our thrower, which was Moreno, and like shoved the ball into his stomach. And then you notice quickly that, all the Brighton players are around and watching him take the throw in. And then a couple of seconds later, Taiwo turns up and he's like, yeah, you're not messing with big bad Taiwo. I thought that was really, Taiwo's just laughing with this guy. Because I'm telling you, I reckon you don't want to fight Taiwo. That guy's a beast.
2-1 at half time, Forest losing the game. And then came out second half and it was Brighton, I thought, did dominate. I thought the second half, Forest did struggle. Yes, we scored, and obviously the controversy at the end, but Forest did struggle in that second half. I thought we struggled to get a real hold of the game, and that was a slight concern. Would you agree?
Yeah, it looked like they were well on top for that first 10, 15 minutes, and easily could have scored. I wasn't a big fan of one of the players passing in the middle of the field, who I know that I always give a hard time to on this podcast. But it looks like we just need the tackling of Yates and the passing ability of someone else is what we need. We just didn't quite have it right, did we?
No, we didn't. And that's where Forest's, I think Nuno will look at and think it's a big talking point and a big issue that Forest maybe need to work on. Right, let's get on to the incident, because we can't really go on for too long on this podcast without talking about it, and then we'll get on to press conferences and things like that. What was your assessment, David, of Morgan Gibbs-White? First of all, the yellow card, and just the challenge itself, and then all the controversy with sending Nuno off and Anthony Taylor getting involved with that?
Well, the initial moment you see it, and then you're like, oh no. So I thought it was going to be a second yellow straight away. And then you have that, you just see the referee with the ball sign and all right, yep, cool, relief. And then it just seemed like an eternity passed, and then suddenly he's pulling out the second yellow. And you're like, wait a minute, how do you change your mind so much from that? And the emotion of the match really spilled over, given that, teams, like, they would have expected that they were going to soak up the pressure from Forest. They go 2-1 up. They're going to expect that they're going to win. Our key guy, Morgan's our key guy, makes a tackle. They're going to be pushing him to be sent off if they can and push that as much as they possibly can. So they're into it. And then Forest have gotten back into it at 2-2. And then we think that our guy's safe, and then suddenly he's not. I think that's the first time we've really seen an emotional outburst from Nuno. That surprised me. But sometimes you can choose to make emotional outbursts as a psychological reaction to try and get an outcome. And I wouldn't put it past Nuno that he thought, yeah, I'm just going off here. Now, what value are we really going to get from Nuno on the side of the pitch for the last 5 minutes anyway? Maybe him getting really annoyed was better and galvanised the team, given that Morgan was sent off. But it was a dumb challenge. You see them get yellows all the time. He was on a yellow card. He was just asking for trouble. Sorry, Morgan, it was a mistake. But still annoying. What was your take?
Yeah, I thought it was a harsh yellow, but I can understand why it's given.
Yeah.
I've spoken to lots of referees in the past, from a semi-professional level to even some championship referees, just out of interest to almost, someone that watches and covers football so much. I want to get my knowledge up there of why certain decisions are, and almost actually try and sometimes have sympathy with referees, because it is a difficult job and you get a lot of criticism that comes towards your way. But what I don't understand is, if that's a yellow card and Rob Jones makes the decision that it's a yellow straight away, let's say he doesn't do any of the ball gesture thing and he just reaches straight in, he gives the yellow, it's a sending off, I'd be less frustrated and angry, and I'd question it less if that was the case. What I can't seem to understand, David, is why the fourth official in Anthony Taylor has to get involved. I don't understand that. Hang on a minute, who is reffing this game here? Is this Anthony Taylor's game, or is this Robert Jones's game? And for me, it was clearly Anthony Taylor's, because why would he have to get involved? And what you'll find interesting if you watch a lot of the replays back is Anthony Taylor is also advising Robert Jones to send Nuno off and to even send the Brighton manager off. So, I
the
understand
Brighton manager getting sent off looked really weird, didn't it?
Yeah, and
like,
I don't really. Yeah, absolutely, and I don't really know where that's come from, to be perfectly honest. Whether he's said something to Morgan, or Morgan said something to him, or it was an outburst of him. I mean, I don't really understand why he was getting involved. But let's just focus on the fact that I just still struggle to understand how, yes, Anthony Taylor is the fourth official, and yes, the linesman can do the same. They can give advice to the referee, but at the end of the day, the referee is the most senior person on that football pitch.
Well, I thought the referee
they make the decision.
Well, he was close to it too. So he wasn't miles away from where it was.
But so Anthony Taylor has overturned his position on that, because he was clearly not going to send Morgan off.
Yeah, it just seemed like a weird flip of the decision. Like, it's almost like he got something in the ear. But given that decision is so important for the context of that match, like, can you imagine if we'd have dropped that point? We'd have been absolutely filthy right now, and copping fines and putting tweets out and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, it's just like it gave me let's just think about how the NFL deals with that situation. They just don't make those rash decisions, and maybe, typically you see that in the NFL they'll stop the play and they'll have a conversation around it. Rob Jones had decided. He said no, that wasn't a yellow, and then suddenly he changed his mind. So why is someone else's decision so much stronger than yours, or did he not know that himself? In which case, why did he say no? He got the ball. Yeah, it's tough to say, isn't it?
Very, very tough to say, and I think we want. And the frustrating thing is second yellows can't get overturned, and second yellows a yellow card can't be intervened by VAR. So even more infuriating. And
but in many ways, the second yellow card should be intervened or reviewed, because that can be closer. Whereas a red card, a straight red, is typically pretty clear that it's a send off, really. And so just the context of that match, it literally took our top guy off with 15 minutes left to play. That's a pretty big call. And to make that very big call. So, livelihoods can be lost on teams getting relegated in the Premier League, and we're obviously not going to this season. I would, fingers crossed, touch wood. But yeah, it's just a big call to make. So, yeah. But would you mind the manager getting sent off? Man, I actually quite like it. I'm like, you freaking go, Nuno. Like, come on. Like, get stuck in. I'm like, yeah.
No, I don't. I get it, and I think if I was in Nuno's position, I would have got frustrated, and I would have probably done what he's done, if not more. But the manager there is, I just think, now and Nuno will get a fine, and the club will be in the spotlight again for that. I just think he's got to maintain his professionalism. But I could understand why he's done it. Like, I'm not criticising Nuno by saying that. Let's read out some comments, because I put a tweet out to say, due to us pre-recording tonight, we welcome your Forest comments. And this one from Chaz that said, I was there and celebrated that Morgan Gibbs-White challenge like a goal. Didn't think it was a second yellow or even a foul. Referees should be qualified to distinguish between a well-timed, robust challenge and a foul, in brackets, even with someone in their ear, obviously on about and referring to Anthony Taylor there. Kean says, we played brilliantly in the first half, but the minute that Brighton's second went in, it was like a switch flipped. Second half was very scrappy. We did amazingly to get back level, and as much as Morgan Gibbs-White's red was unwarranted, in my opinion, you could tell he lost his head in that second half. I see why the referee has got it. Few more on Twitter, if I can get to them. This one, ref didn't give a foul. VAR don't intervene for yellow, so why did Anthony Taylor intervene as a fourth official? He cannot help himself. That one from Andrew. Kevin says, both are useless. Taylor slightly worse than Jones. This one from Dane, it's not a yellow, Max. I'm sorry, he won the ball and he shouldn't have gone in for that 50-50, knowing he was on a yellow, unless which he did. He was certain of winning the ball.
That's right. He did win the ball, but it was a dangerous tackle to make on a yellow and in a stupid position of the pitch. It's not Like what? Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, let's move on and talk about the positives. And we'll get on to Murillo in a minute because he was the man of the match. It was given to by Sky and the official Premier League one. Let's talk about Ramon Sosa. What a goal, or that's my Midlands accent again, isn't it? Ramon Sosa. Great goal from him.
It was just your key guys, quick passes, fast. So what Murillo to Chris Wood to Morgan Gibbs-White, played into what Jota, who just seems to be springing those offside traps, and then Sosa was there, well taken goal. I thought, you beauty, that was a terrific goal. 5 passes, exactly what you want. It's exactly the sort of goal you see from the Forest inside training videos when they're playing, don't you? They could have had another one if not for what was it, Jota going offside. It was Jota who went offside, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So he just got caught a little bit.
Interesting one about Jota. You know, he's almost come on as a super sub, and he has contributed lots. And then we saw that great cameo against Newcastle, and obviously getting on the score sheet. Would you be tempted to give him a start over Anthony Elanga?
You'd be tempted to think about it, but Anthony Elanga is Anthony Elanga. Like, come on, it's Anthony Elanga. Like, how good was that pass against Liverpool last week? The pace of him. We were on top of him for the first 40 minutes, and Cho and Elanga were a big part of that. I think you've got to see a little bit more to unseat Anthony Elanga, I think you'll find. Let's just cool our jets and just settle down a little bit.
Yeah. We've talked for a while, David, about Forest having quality on the bench and being able to produce and to bring on players that can change games. Obviously, Sosa being one and getting on the score sheet. Also, Jota Silva gets a mention. And that is one thing this season. You feel confident because Forest have a strong bench that can change games if things aren't going well for us.
Well, yeah, and typically it's just been, oh yeah, we've got the bench. Oh, it's Taiwo on for Chris Wood this time, and it just seems the obvious, ring of changes. Whereas now it's options, it's different shapes, it's players of quality. It's Ryan Yates is clearly a different player to James Ward-Prowse. We got a bunch of stronger tackling in the middle, and maybe it felt a little empty in there. That made it certainly short up the tackling. So it just gives us options. So the strength of the bench is there. I thought it would have been peak Taiwo would have been good in this game. I think he would have been really strong on the break. Do you think Nuno not bringing
Taiwo on and Taiwo not starting is another sign of how his time at Forest is going in a minute? And I mean that in a way of struggling for fitness or struggling with confidence.
I think it's all of the above. He's got the penalty that's still coming down, hasn't hit the ground yet. He's had those injuries. We don't quite have the Taiwo of late. He's going to have to wait for it. You can't force these things. He's going to have to wait for an organic moment where he's going to come on and turn a game for us like we know that he can do, and then suddenly being back in form. I don't mind that they're not pushing him to play when we may not necessarily. Like, we didn't need him today. It wasn't the strategy didn't call for it. I still think peak Taiwo is probably better than peak Chris Wood, but he's obviously not there yet. And we know that strikers in the summer window. I call it the summer window because it's summer for me. The strikers are more expensive in the Christmas window than in the summer window, I guess. So could he be on his way out? We're just not going to get the value for him. I'd be waiting. I'd be sitting on Taiwo for a little bit longer yet. He will come good. He'll still jag us some goals this season. I don't think it'll be 10, but it'll be at least more than 5.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Or that. Right, let's talk about Murillo. And he gets man of the match. We get absolutely sick.
You love Murillo. He is definitely.
I do. Yeah,
yeah. He's like Murillo, and then there's like everyone else.
No, Ryan Yates is up there, obviously, because I look like him. Let's talk about Murillo's stats. 15 clearances. That's the most in a Premier League game so far this season. And for him, is obviously a record. 2 blocks, 1 key pass, 7 passes into the final third, 2 accurate long balls, 2 ground duels, 1 100% aerial duels, 1 and 100% successful dribbles. They are good stats. They make good readings. And you just feel like, in a time where, towards the end of the game, David, we're talking about being nervous because we're down to 10 men, but you've got Murillo at the back to steady the ship, and you've got to be confident with him in the defence.
Well, his fast pass created the second goal. That's a pretty long pass from him that was super accurate to Chris Wood. He's playing it out from the back. Is just quality that we haven't had for a very long time. There's a dependable nature about him, and then I was actually more impressed with his tag team partner. I thought Milenkovic was also very strong today, and those two together are giving us a rock solid Cooper Chetelesque back set of centre backs. So yeah, hats off to him. You're also just waiting for a Murillo. There was the one in the first half. I think it was the first half, or I think it went to Anderson and was rolling out, and you're like, oh, please let that be Murillo on the ball so he could ping it in from 50 metres, and it was unfortunately Elliot Anderson. But no, great performance from Murillo. Deserved man of the match. Keeps playing well. What about how he gets a little bit injured and you see him like doing his little injured walk thing, and you're like, you and I both know you're not injured, mate. This is just an act.
Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about Forest being unbeaten, David. We've got to look at the positives. If you just had 4 points out of Brighton and a trip to Anfield to face Liverpool, boy, you would have taken that. It means that Forest are obviously unbeaten. 5 Premier League games, that is now. I mean, just what a start to the season. The club right now is in such a positive place, and we go into next week's game, at the City Ground, back at the City Ground, which will be nice, against a tough opposition in Fulham. But the confidence is high at the moment around the club. Would you agree?
Oh, it's super high. Like, we're 8th. I was thinking before I was having visions of talking up, we're in a Champions League spot if we'd have won. That's the conversation we had. But why can't we beat Fulham? Fulham are a good team as well. Sitting on 8 points, we're 1 point ahead of them. Like, we're ahead of Tottenham and Manchester United and West Ham. And we're in a really, really good spot at the minute. So the confidence breeds confidence, and also just breeds a little bit of composure in these trying moments because you don't have the same pressure. It's just a great time to be a Forest fan. Let's just keep going. Hopefully, touch wood again, no injuries. It's just a confident time around the club. So this is if we finish 8th, that would more than surpass my expectations. I hadn't foreseen an 8th.
Yeah, it'd be a big up. I think it'd be a bit of an upset. It'd be talked about a lot. Where can Forest go this season, though, David? I talked last week to Steve and to Dave about the Liverpool win being the start of something special. Are Forest really, really on the right track now? Off the pitch, we're making the right decisions, it seems. Marinakis talking this week about expanding the stadium plans and obviously the recruitment being great in the summer window. But for Forest this season under Nuno, just how far do you think we can actually go?
Well, is our current position the ceiling? One thing you can say about he's no bullfed Marinakis. He knows what he's doing in all of the facets of life and business that he operates in. And it's taken him a couple of years to work out how to be a more elite level Premier League team. The signings at the moment that we have made, what's the last signing we had that was a miss? Certainly none of the ones at the moment feel like any of them are misses. And if you've got, Sosa, Jota, Milenkovic, Morato, Carlos Miguel, and Ward-Prowse, Elliot Anderson, all of those hit. You're looking at a genuine Premier League outfit that's mixing it with, not the Cartel 6, but being the top of that next tier of teams at the moment. If you don't count Aston Villa in that, we're second of the non-Cartel 6 teams. And we welcome a Fulham team to City Ground next week, jubilant, expectant, with some expectations of we can take these guys out and win. So, but it's a long season. But I maybe top 10. Like, are we? We said this in the preview. Remember, Max? I said, which teams are we better than? Are we better than Tottenham and Manchester United?
Don't ask me that.
I was just asking for trouble because it gets clipped up, doesn't it? And then it can get used. But certainly we're better than Brentford, Bournemouth, West Ham, and Leicester and those ones. I just look at we're miles off. Like, you could look at. I'm just looking at this table. Southampton, Everton, and Wolves all on 1 point. Well, yeah, like it just doesn't feel we're in that mix, does it?
No, it doesn't. It is a good time. Right, before we go and wrap it up, David, do you wanted to mention the assistant manager for the press conference?
Did you see his press conference?
Replacing Nuno? I did.
Rui Pedro. So what a calculated, clever set of answers from him in that press conference. He applied enough pressure without creating any situation where he could cop a fine. His response to the yellow card for Morgan was, well, I didn't think it was this, but I'm sitting here, so I wouldn't know, and I'm sitting back on the bench. His response to, did Nuno overact and not as well? It's an emotional match, and we're Premier League managers. I thought he was 10 out of 10, and so hats off to you, Rui Pedro. You're just one of these guys you see on the sideline, like, oh, he looks pretty cool, and now you hear him talk, and good luck to him. And then, I applaud if this was last season, I think we might have been copping fines and doing things that were a little untoward that get us into trouble. So we're managing the PR and the press of the Premier League much better. And also Chris Wood was good in the interview as well. And Chris Wood, amusingly, also was taking a little bit of a manager position when he was once Nuno was sent off. You saw him talking to Pedro, like looking at the thing and looking at it. So yeah, that's right, Chris Wood. You are a senior player and getting involved. So I liked what I saw from Forest. Let's go again. Here's my other reaction. Are you looking forward to next week's match? Do you wish it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday match now? Or are you sitting there going, oh, goodness, we've got to do another Forest game. It's going to be a disaster.
No, I think for once, we're all looking forward to Premier League clashes.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to it each time. You're looking up when it is. Let's go. City Ground, baby.
City Ground, baby. That's the way to end a podcast, David. Well said. Quick shout out before I go, actually, to Carl and a few of the American supporters groups. They've had a kind of a Premier League in Chicago thing, I think. Premier League mornings live event where lots of the overseas fans were there at this big fan zone and flying the Forest flag. There was lots of Forest fans watching, obviously, the 2:00 kickoff, but it would have been a lot easier for them.
A good Forest watching experience, Max, is the New York... the 23rd and 7, that bar, the name of which escapes me, but those Forest legends of that New York bar, you guys are absolute legends. One of my favorite things when I try to travel to New York is to sit with those legends, and you go into a bar and it's 30 Forest fans, which is just awesome. So yeah, the international Forest fans, and also shout out to my Australian buddies. It's just a great time. So what a great time to be a Forest fan. So yeah, we dust ourselves off. Go again, Max.
Yeah, let's do it. Come on, you Reds. Right, we shall be back. Slightly different episode as well, recorded kind of tonight, straight after the game. But for David, he slept on it. So I hope you did enjoy. Give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube if you did. Follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We shall be back this week. We've got something a little bit different, so stay tuned for that. I won't reveal. I'm going to keep it under wraps, but you'll enjoy it. So stay tuned for that. And then we shall be back for our preview as well at Thursday, Friday to discuss Forest's trip to Fulham. They're all coming round quickly, and it is a good time to be a Forest fan as we sit 8th in the table, 5 Premier League games unbeaten, and even Anthony Taylor and Robert Jones cannot spoil that for us fans. Let's keep it positive. From all of us at Garibaldi Red, have a wonderful week. We'll see you very soon.